Yes, a very warm welcome. So we have a packed programme for you. It's got beer, it's got babies, trade talks, pretty much everything. So let's begin with the spike in trade tensions between the world's two biggest economies following tweets from Donald Trump at the weekend. So America's top trade negotiator, Robert Lighthizer, now says China backtracked on commitments it had previously made during trade talks, prompting the US president to threaten to more than double tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods on Friday. So Mr. Lighthizer told reporters that over the course of the last week or so, we have seen an erosion in commitments by China. That, in our view, is unacceptable, he says. In response to that, you're no surprise to hear that stocks fell heavily today during the trading session. Fears escalating now of where this trade war is headed next, with the two sides appeared to be close to a deal not so long ago. So in a moment, we're going to get live reaction from our bureau in Beijing. But first of all, Michelle Fleury in New York, who is telling us how we got here.
America's chief trade negotiator, Robert Lighthizer, was apparently angered by the Chinese government's attempts to reopen aspects of the deal that the US considered settled. This especially relates to the forced transfer of technology from American companies operating in China. Now, Mr. Lighthizer apparently shared his frustrations with his boss, Donald Trump, who then escalated tensions. And in a post on Twitter, the US president said talks were moving too slowly, and he said that tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese products would increase from 10% to 25% by the end of the week. Now, some suspect this is an attempt by Mr. Trump to pressure the Chinese side to resolve the remaining issues. He may feel he has the room to manoeuvre with a better jobs picture, stronger stock market. But it's still not without risk. If he follows through, tariffs would hit US customers and some of his base. Still, the president was back to tweeting on Monday, this time railing against the size of America's trade deficit. Now, when the opening bell rang here in the United States, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell more than 450 points, although remarkably, it later recovered most of the losses. If you look at the way the stock market is reacting, it's not clear if they think the president will follow through with his threat. However, the abrupt decline in stock prices around the world suggests that the possibility of a trade war between the world's two largest economies still has the ability to roil the markets.
That's Michelle there. Now let's cross live to Beijing, and our correspondent there, Stephen McDonnell, who's hot-footed it from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs briefing. And Stephen, what's the reaction from the Chinese government been, if at all, at that press conference?
Yes, well, we just heard from Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang that China still hopes that even at this late hour there can be a negotiation which can avoid that increase in tariffs on Friday. So they're hoping that on Thursday that both sides can somehow break through whatever disagreements they have. It's interesting, though, he also said this is a negotiating process. What do you expect? Of course we have different points of view. I guess that's pushing back a little bit on these comments from the Trump administration that somehow China has been winding back its position. And, you know, this comes off the back of the news we heard from the Commerce Ministry that Liu He, China's senior trade negotiator, will still be going to Washington. And this means he'll be there on Friday when that tariff increase happens, if indeed that's what comes to pass. And that at the meeting on Thursday, they can't find a way to finally come to some sort of an agreement.
So it sounds, Stephen, like they're really trying to play it down in China, and in particular as well, what's being said in the media and across China about all of this.
Yeah, if you looked at China's state-run media, it's as if none of this is happening. Some Chinese investors are even scratching their heads and wondering why it is that their stock market is under siege. That's because if they're only reading China's state-run press or watching state-run television, they've heard virtually nothing about this issue. They've not heard the specifics of this threat from the United States to raise tariffs. And those investors who obviously are pushing down the stock market or pulling out of this stock and that are the ones who've somehow got access to the foreign media. They're watching the BBC or they're reading international newspapers and the like.
Stephen, OK, thank you very much indeed. McDonnell there in Beijing for us.